We find the shape tools in the toolbar. Here they are. We have the rectangle, the ellipse, polygon, and a star. Let's begin by drawing a rectangle. We click and draw, and when we hold down Shift, we constrain it to a perfect square. We find the same idea with the ellipse tool. Shift gives us a perfect circle. For the polygon and the star, here's a trick a lot of people miss. Once you start dragging, tap the up or down arrow keys to add or remove sides or points. No need to let go and start over. And once a shape exists, you can always edit it. Grab the corner handles to resize or double click with the shape tool to open a dialog. When you get this dialog box, then you can get exact dimensions. Once you've got a few shapes on your canvas, the Pathfinder panel is how you start building more complex forms out of simple ones. And we open it from Window, Pathfinder. Let's select both shapes, and Unite merges them into one solid form. We can choose minus front. This one subtracts whatever's on top from what's underneath. This is great for cutting a notch or a hole into a shape. Intersect keeps only the overlapping area, and exclude does the opposite. It keeps everything except the overlap. These four operations, unite, minus front, intersect, and exclude, will get you most of the way through building custom shapes from basic ones. When we keep looking at the Pathfinder and we come down below, we see we have some other tools, and they are similar in a lot of ways. So I'm just going to grab and I'm going to draw a couple circles. Now, I can draw my circle, grab my black arrow, and I can edit, copy, edit, paste, edit, copy, edit, paste. So I have a couple of these. So I have a couple shapes right here. Let's take these shapes and let's overlap them and see what happens. I select all three. When I come to divide, what happens is they all become separate shapes. Now, a lot of times when I go to move these around, they move as a group. So what you have to do many times is you have to deselect. In Illustrator, we'll find it's so much about selections. To deselect, I can come up and choose select, deselect, or I can also just click off onto my white artboard. Now, when I go to move these again, it's getting the whole thing. So what I can do instead is grab my direct select tool, which is my white arrow, and I can start seeing how I have all of these little pieces based on where these all wherever it intersected, this is what happened. Now, many times when we use this too, it ends up getting grouped. So what you can also do is go on up to Object and choose Ungroup. And then you can easily start moving these around a little bit more. Voila, with all these different shapes. Great. I'll move this up here. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. Again, we want to start with overlapping shapes. Let's grab two rounded rectangles. 1, 2. A rounded rectangle, when we look at the corner, we can see it has a border radius. So that's what we have with a rounded rectangle. We can adjust the radius. When I click these two, both of them are selected, and I choose trim, and they're trimmed. Sometimes I watch these and think, okay, great. And so it's trimmed right where they're overlapping. What's interesting is you can find a lot of times you can get the same result two different ways. All right, let's try two more. Again, I'm really sticking with one color. I'll change that up when we get to the color guide. So I'm going to select these two. Let's look at this next one. This one is exactly like intersect. I could click intersect. I'm going to Command Z, which is edit undo. This one will just put in the outlines, and I can make my stroke thicker, and I can see my outlines. Beautiful. Put these two over here. All right, let's grab two more shapes and just try out our last one. So we know what we have. We have 1, we have 2. Now let's see what happens here. Strokes are always going to be a little bit different. They're not going to always read. So let's give it a shot, and then we can change it up if we have to. So I come to here and I'm going to choose minus back. Voila, it worked perfectly. Wonderful. There we have it. A full test of our Pathfinder tool. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to look at having another artboard. So if I go to Window and I come to my artboards, what's great too is these are all in ABC order. And I'm going to say add another artboard. Wonderful. Okay, on this artboard, I am going to add a couple shapes. Shape 1. I want to have a fill, right? Right now I have the stroke. Let me add this in for my fill. And I'm going to have 1. If you hold down, here's a trick. If you hold down the Option key, you can pull out duplicates of shapes. That's interesting. That looks like a little residual something, not quite sure what, but it's a little something. I'm going to ignore it for now. All right, so I have these 3 shapes right here. And I am going to experiment for a minute with the Shape Builder tool. So I come on over to my tools. So if I come right to here, this one right here is my Shape Builder tool. And now you can see it has these little tutorials for you too. So what I can do with all of these selected is I can grab my Shape Builder tool and I can run through these, and now it becomes one shape. Voila, one shape. Let's add in a couple more shapes again. And let's just try a couple more things. We could say when we work with the Shape Builder that we can work in a more of a freehand kind of manner. So I have these shapes right here, and what I like to do when I work with my Shape Builder tool is I can click, and I can start to click, and when these shapes that I'm clicking, they are going to become their own shapes. Now I can click off, and a lot of times I click my black arrow, I click off to deselect, and then every place that I clicked, it separates it out. That's an interesting looking shape, right? So you can start putting in and creating implied line. All right, let's just take a look at color. When I look at color, I can see that I have this color selected. It's in the color fill. I can double click. I can see the number, the hex number for this color. I'm going to hit OK. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go to Window and I am going to open up the color guide. Again, when I'm in my color guide and in Window, everything is going to be in ABC order. What's amazing about the color guide is there is all kinds of color theory stored within this guide. And I can click this and I can see that I have all these other options. So if I wanted to do a complementary palette, here I have the complementary color. A complementary color is a color that's opposite on the color wheel. It is the opposite color. I can do complementary to. I can do a left complement, a right complement, an analogous color. There's lots of options. And I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to go for a right complement. So I can click, I can choose tints and shades. A tint is going to be a lighter version of a color, and a shade will be darker. A shade adds black. A tint adds white. So I'm going to stay from that side right there. Now I'm going to start to come in and go to this color underneath. You can see this color right here. It's definitely a more intense color. I could select it all as a group. Then I could come up and I could choose object group. I could edit, copy, edit, paste in front. I could edit, copy, edit, paste. I have another one. I could hover on the side and I could flip it. So there we have it. We just did a nice overview of the shape tools to draw precise geometric shapes. The Pathfinder, we can unite, subtract, intersect, exclude, overlap shapes to build new forms. The Shape Builder, we can have overlapping shapes, we can merge them, we can remove sections. And the Color Guide, where we can create color palettes from a base color using built-in harmony rules and color theory.